And welcome to News Morning here on New Day on TV3. My name is Beatrice Sedu, coming up in the next few minutes. President John Mahama announces March 2027 for completion of first 700 Saglemi housing unit, with 1,500 units targeted for completion by end of 2027. Also on the program this morning, Electoral Commission says it is ready for any constitutional referendum as Ghana readies to amend portions of the 1992 Constitution. And much later on the program, over 300 members of the Ghana Mineworkers Union demand the release of their locked-up funds since 2019. My name is Beatrice Sedu. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now, President John Mahama has announced that the first 700 housing units at the Saglemi affordable housing project are expected to be completed and commissioned by March 2027, with 1,500 units targeted for completion by the end of 2027. President John Mahama made the announcement during a tour of the Saglemi housing project as work continues to complete the residential community.
A project he started during his first administration, but which has now become a pale shadow of its former self. It later became the subject of a criminal justice inquiry during the erstwhile MPP administration, involving former Works and Housing Minister Collins Dauda. The president highlighted some of the challenges encountered at the project after years of inactivity, including the theft of electrical cables, but assured that this would not happen again.
This was a vision that was started by Professor Atta Mills, and I came and continued it. Unfortunately, when government changed hands, there were some issues, legal issues, and the new government said they wanted to investigate. And so, in the meantime, the project stalled. Now, the unfortunate thing that happened was, looters came in and stole everything, the cables, the wash basins, the baths, all the fittings, electricals, bulbs. They even took the telecom cables from underground and pulled them away and took them. And so, it just left an empty shell. And eventually, the governments agreed that the private sector should partner to finish it, and LMI were choosing to do it.
He said prospective homeowners should be prepared to take advantage of the opportunity once the official registration process begins.
The good thing is, if people don't register fast enough, you see all these industries here, all the way to Tema, those in the industrial area, Dawa industrial area, they will snap up all the houses for their workers. But they are available for people who want to move with their families here. And so when the portal is open to register those who are interested in purchasing houses, I'm sure that many Ghanaian workers and other persons who want to live in a beautiful estate like this would register. So there are very good things happening in this corridor. Happily, government is dualizing the road from here to Aflao. The first phase is being worked on. The second phase from Central University is just being awarded. And so you would have a fast road link. You also have, like he said, a rail link. The rail link will carry not only humans, but for the industries in the industrial park, their containers and other things from the Tema ports will come by the rail.
Now, the Roads and Highways Minister, Gavins Kwame Agboja, has called on the Bono Regional Security Council to provide maximum protection for the contractor working on the Wenchi in Soko at Debibi Road. The minister says the contractor must be allowed to work without disturbance to meet the December 2027 completion target. He made the call at Sampa after inspecting ongoing rehabilitation works.
The project being executed by Joshua Company Limited forms part of a broader inspection of road projects across the Bono region.
development can only take place in a peaceful place. We believe these sorts of development will also cement the peace we are all building in the communities. We only appeal to you that give all the necessary support and protection to the contractors and their staff to be able to have the peace of mind to do the work, because any semblance of insecurity would naturally drive them away.
The Roads and Highways Minister, Govins Abuja, expressed satisfaction with the pace of work and says continued monitoring will be critical to ensuring the project is delivered on schedule. The inspection also covered the 45.6 kilometer Sunyani Aturoni Atrensua Road and the 80 kilometer Jini Sampa Road. For the Jini Sampa corridor, the minister says the road is particularly important to cashew farmers whose livelihoods have been constrained by poor road access.
We used this road some time ago. Truth be told, it was pathetic. We saw women piling sacks of cashew by the roadside. Meanwhile, when you keep driving for hours, you notice that you didn't see any car passing you. So the question is, who is coming to buy this cashew? How is this a single mother going to be able to recoup her investment in the farming she's doing? And the president promised that this is why we are doing this. It is not merely building road. It to make sure that the cashew farmers on this corridor would have better prices, be able to evacuate their cashew to the farm, sell, bring the money and develop, pay their children's school fees, build houses and many things. This is how we build a country, and President Mahama is doing exactly that.
Work on the 17-kilometer Sunyani Outer Ring Road is also progressing ahead of schedule, with the contractor confident of completing the project by next year. The minister reiterated government commitment to completing both new and inherited road projects, insisting that contractors will face continuous monitoring. For the Roads and Highways Ministry, the inspection goes beyond measuring how quickly projects are progressing. It is about ensuring that every stage of construction meets the required standard and ultimately taxpayers get value for money. Ibrahim Abubakar, TV3 News, Bono Region.
Now, Ghana's power grid is under renewed scrutiny after a third major widespread disruption in less than 4 months and the second nationwide outage in just 22 days. Gridco blames the latest blackout on a fault on the Akosombo Volta transmission line, while the Energy Ministry points to a still fragile temporary arrangement at Akosombo following April's switchyard fire. Noble Crosbyanan has filed this report for us.
Ghana's power system has suffered 3 major widespread disruptions in less than 4 months. The first came on April 23, when fire destroyed the control room at Gridco's Akosombo switchyard. The incident disrupted the evacuation of power from the Akosombo generating station, temporarily affecting more than 1,000 megawatts of generation and cutting electricity supply to part of the country. Ghana Grid Company later restored the plant using what it described as an emergency and improvised connection arrangement, while work began on a temporary control system. Then came July 29, 2026. At about 3:11 in the morning, Gridco reported a major disturbance on the National Interconnected Transmission System. Several generating plants tripped simultaneously, resulting in widespread power cuts across the country. Gridco activated its restoration procedures and announced a comprehensive technical investigation to establish the exact cause of the disturbance. But barely 3 weeks later, the system suffered another major shock. At approximately 4:30 Thursday morning, August 20, Gridco says a major fault developed with the Akosombo Volta transmission line. The fault caused generating units at Akosombo to trip automatically together with some thermal power plants. Once again, large parts of the country were left without electricity. That makes Thursday's incident the second major nationwide scale outage in just 22 days. And the third major widespread grid disruption in less than 4 months. The Energy Ministry says The latest incident must be understood within the temporary arrangement currently operating at Akosombo. Energy Minister Dr. John Jinapor says after the April fire, government had a choice between keeping Akosombo offline for several months while the control system was rebuilt, or restoring generation through a temporary arrangement.
When we had a major incident at Akosombo, after meeting the engineers, we had two options: either to shut the plant down and build the control center in its entirety, which meant that the plant would have been off for 6 months, or put in this temporal structure or temporal mechanism and restore the power, albeit knowing that it would be a bit fragile. As minister, I had a decision to make, and I decided that we should go by the temporal measure whilst we put in place a permanent solution. And so engineers working around the clock have improvised a system to supply power from Akosombo. And for some months now, it has largely held. But because it's a temporal measure, occasionally when there's some frequency disturbance, it takes off Akosombo immediately to protect the system.
Government says work on a permanent resilient control system is expected to be completed soon.
But fortunately, the work that is being done to build the center or the control room is expected to be completed just next month. And so I would appeal to Ghanaians to bear with us. It was a very complex situation. We needed to think outside the box and come out with an innovative solution to hold power stability. It's true, today we had about 1 hour outage to about 1.5 hour outage for some parts of Accra and some parts of the country. But I can't compare that to having 6 months of Akosombo perpetually down. This phase is just a temporary phase. I'm sure that by next month, we'll switch back and we'll have a much more resilient power supply situation.
So, while GridCo and the Energy Ministry point to specific technical incidents, a fire, a system disturbance, and now a transmission line fault, the minority have maintained the frequency of the outages point to a much wider problem.
And the MPP minority will not allow this government to shelter its own incompetence behind the narrative of a single incident. The darkness Ghanaians are experiencing is not the product of 23rd April 2026. It is the product of 14 months of policy failure, institutional neglects, and the deliberate abandonment of the energy sector recovery framework.
And the consequences go beyond households sitting in darkness. When the grid goes down, water treatment and pumping systems can stop operating. Hospitals and essential institutions switch to backup generators. Businesses lose productive hours. Factories face interruptions. In the meantime, Energy Minister Dr. Jinapor says work is progressing to fully restore power to affected areas.
In a related development, the Energy Minister, Dr. John Jinapor, is also urging the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC, to intensify scrutiny of the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG's commercial performance, warning that weaknesses at ECG could undermine the finances of the entire energy sector. Speaking at the commissioning of a new PURC office, the minister also called for tougher enforcement and a stronger regulatory presence beyond the announcement of utility tariffs.
We are making significant progress, but I would urge you to strengthen the regulation of your sector. I know sometimes as you strengthen the enforcement, you step on toes. But you have to step on some toes sometimes to ensure that you achieve your objective. Also intensify scrutiny of all the utilities, particularly their commercial performance. And when I say this, I zero down on ECG, because the ECG is the key link when it comes to the value chain in terms of the financial sector of the energy sector. Because if they don't get the money, it will be difficult to pay. I also encourage you that you let the consumer feel the presence of the regulator beyond tariff announcement. And like I said, you've been doing a lot, so I encourage you to do more. Also deepen stakeholder engagement. You don't operate as an island. And so build consensus, work with people. And finally, let's support industrial competitiveness, particularly in relation to the president's 24-hour economy.
Now, Ghana could be heading for another important vote next year. President John Mahama says a referendum on proposed changes to the 1992 Constitution will be held alongside the 2027 District Assembly elections. The Electoral Commission says it is ready for the exercise. Now, in this report, Evelyn Tengma looks at the preparations and the challenges of getting enough voters to the polls.
For many Ghanaians, the word referendum may sound familiar, but unlike an election where people choose their leaders, a referendum allows citizens to vote directly on specific issues. Next year, Ghanaians could be asked to vote on proposed changes to some important parts of the 1992 Constitution. The vote is expected to take place alongside the District Assembly and Uni Committee elections. But there is a major challenge. For changes to entrenched provisions in the Constitution to pass, at least 40% of registered voters must take part, and 75% of those who vote must vote yes. Director of Research at the Electoral Commission, Fred Tete, says with voter turnout at District Assembly elections often low, massive public education will be needed.
We're going to do what we call the electoral education, which is somehow different from voter education, engaging the stakeholders to know what the referendum is about and then why people should participate. It's going to be a long way of voter engagement and voter education, because usually our local elections, district assembly elections, turnout are very low, on the average 33% over the years. And that means a call for a massive public education that will involve all stakeholders, the media, traditional authorities, religious bodies, if indeed we want some of these issues to go through.
He said preparations will also require a new legal framework, as the rules used for the 2018 referendum on the creation of new regions cannot be used for this exercise.
The new CI content will be determined by the issues that we'll be going for. What I've seen and I've read, we may have not less than 3 issues to go into the referendum. So what it means is that you have at the polling station about 5 to 6, 7 ballot boxes. So if the referendum issues are 3, 4, 5, that means you're going to have a long list of ballot papers that people are going to go into a kind of production chain in terms of their voting, the sequencing of the voting.
Fred Tete added that the Commission will also have to review and exhibit the voters' register so people can check their details and polling stations. Depending on the number of issues approved, voters could have several referendum questions to vote on, in addition to choosing the Assembly and Unit Committee members. The Electoral Commission says it has the people and experience needed to conduct the exercise, but it will need enough funding from the state for the logistics. 8 years ago, Ghanaians went to the polls to decide whether new regions should be created. Next year, they could be asked to decide on something much closer to the heart of the country's democracy, the rules of the Constitution itself. For the Electoral Commission, the challenge is therefore not only to organize another vote. It is to make sure that when the question finally reaches the ballot paper, Ghanaians understand what they are voting for and have confidence in the process. The clock is already ticking. Evelyn Tengma, TV3 News, Accra.
Clock indeed ticking. Now, more than 300 members of Ghana Mineworkers Union yesterday protested at the premises of the Bank of Ghana, demanding the release of funds belonging to mine workers whose monies have been locked up in Bank of Ghana regulated financial institutions since 2019. The protesters called on the Bank of Ghana to take steps to facilitate the recovery and release of their funds.
The demonstrators marched to the Bank of Ghana to demand action over more than 350 million Ghana cedis they say is owed to some 19,000 mining workers. The union is calling on the central bank to take immediate steps to facilitate the release of the funds and ensure that affected workers receive their monies. General Secretary of the Ghana Mineworkers Union, Abdul Mumin Bana, presented a petition to officials of the Bank of Ghana.
The governor of the Bank of Ghana owes us a responsibility under its enabling act to protect us.
Exactly so.
Unfortunately, they have failed. And so we are demanding that all our locked up funds in excess of 350 million Ghana cedis belonging to 19,000 members, miners of this country and their families. We are demanding every penny from the Bank of Ghana.
We are here with the umbrella body, the Trade Union Congress, and its 24 affiliates. And we are all supporting this cause. It is our belief that the Bank of Ghana and the government of this country will listen to us and do the needful so that workers of this country will be restored.
Head of Legal at the Bank of Ghana, Jesse Jacinto, received the petition and assured the union of the bank's resolve to address their grievances.
Some of the funds are under the purview of other regulatory agencies. We assure you that your concerns raised will be given the due consideration.
It again presented a petition to the Finance Ministry.
You are family, and so next time we will not meet you at the entrance. Thank you. But you should decide to come for us to sit down instead of wearing red and come in this manner.
Later, the workers picketed at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources to present their petition to the sector minister. They were demanding that the sector minister, Emmanuel Kufibua, addresses issues on fish-term contracts and abuses in the mining sector.
At the core of our local content policy is the interest of workers and work protections and job security of workers.
Affairs correspondent Daniel Opoku brought us that report. That's all for News Morning here on New Day on TV3. My name is Beatrice.